here we go. And we we have some theme music we could have had there, as we, but we're here now, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone else. Two legs, four legs, wings. Welcome to our show tonight. Whatever, whatever brought you here. My name is Andre Chumley. How are you tonight or today? We do have people tagging in from Poland, Japan, stuff like that. As I said, my name's Andre Chumley. We're here on Make Weird Music. This is time for confronting creativity, and we do this every 2 Friday nights, every fortnight, as the Brits would say. And tonight, every once in a while, I can say, this person's a dear friend of mine, and this is one of those times. This gentleman that you're going to meet tonight, he is a violinist, he's a composer, he's an electronic musician, he's a deep thinker. He comes up with a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with music. That fascinates me. And he is well known in the world of orchestral music, new music. He's worked with people like Morton Subotnick, Steve Reich, Laurie Anderson, yes, a bit of Laurie Anderson, Joe Jackson. The list is insanely long, so we won't list it all right now. But most importantly, he's here tonight to talk about what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, Todd Reynolds. How are you, my friend?
I am awesome, Andre, and I know how you are because I just asked you about 10 minutes ago. So, but I'm awesome. Thank you for asking, and I'm really, really thrilled to be here with you, always.
That's awesome, my friend. Likewise, Todd and I always are just trying to figure out this planet. So we're going to talk about the music side of it a little bit tonight.
Yep.
So, well, let me start with that, Todd. Here we are. This sci-fi movie keeps twisting and turning, and how have you been these 16, 18 months? Tell us a little bit about.
Oh man, I've been great. I guess the real condensed version of it goes a little something like this. When everything started to happen, in a way, it didn't impact me as much because I didn't have a Broadway show. I wasn't on tour. I wasn't kind of out there in the world. My dog wants in. I was here at the house, and I was working and recording for people in my studio in my home. So things didn't change that much. But over the year and a half, my goodness, my cooking has improved. My music making has improved. My relationship has improved. My understanding of the synth world has improved, and my ability to work with cameras has improved. And I've dug down and become closer to friends in my community that I wouldn't have imagined I would have gotten that close to, yourself included. So there's, while I look with so much empathy at all of us as we've walked through this, there are conversations that are happening now that would not have happened without this. So as I like to try to be a silver lining person, as my partner Isabel is all the time, the positivity quotient helped make the way through, if I can say that.
That's great. No, that's a beautifully balanced kind of thing, and yeah, we've talked about that a little bit over the time, and my saying, make lemonade with lemons, and sometimes put a little vodka in it.
Yeah,
that's kind of my humor.
Lemonade without lemons just doesn't quite work.
So but no, that's great to hear, man, and we're gonna get into a bit of that because it's been great watching you, and wow, just all the stuff, right? It's been a busy year, and been able to enjoy all kinds of streaming that you've done. We're going to talk a bit about that. Let's. I don't even know where to start, but let's start with. Just tell us. Let's go backwards a little bit and bring us to here. Tell us a little bit about Amplify This and some of the wonderful streams and workshops and things you did last year, and with a little bit of letting us know how that improved your skill set.
Yes. Okay, good. So we start in March. I have to tell you, I got to shut the door because the air conditioning is
Sure.
on. Also, we should check in with the chat really quickly. If this air
Sure.
conditioning is so loud that it's disturbing,
No
I'll turn
problem.
it off. But I got to say, if the equipment heats up, we got a whole different problem.
Yeah, well, people, it's not bugging me, so we can do a survey because if hey, we got to keep stuff. So let's say hello first of all. Hello Sharon. Hello NJ Synth guy. Dean's here. Friday the 13th. Hey Raimundo. A lot of cool people here. How's the sound, folks? Is Todd's background AC? You know,
Are
I
we
mean,
are we matched? Kind of. Yeah, we should ask everybody about
yeah.
it.
How are our two volumes together, folks? Give us some. And we have, again, it's always great when Dean's in the room. Everyone else is helpful too, but we have one of the best front of house sound
Excellent.
people.
Thank you, Sharon. Well, we got one.
So,
One sounds good. That's great.
yeah. Sharon says it sounds excellent.
Excellent,
Awesome.
excellent. So we start back in January, actually, not
Okay.
the past January, but the January before. First thing that happened for me was that school went online.
Yeah.
Right. So school goes online, and that means that I'm teaching what is that semester's Max MSP, Cycling 74's Max MSP online. So that's the first thing that happens. And like any artist, we look well, I especially look toward technology, but we all look for the ways to make ourselves better and make our connections and interactions with others better. That's kind of part of our skill set and part of our passion, at least part of my passion. So my performance aesthetic on stage or in a production studio, mapped straight on to being on Zoom. It's like, how can I be best on Zoom? And then you start to wrestle with sound and the fact that sound is awful. Then you got to wrestle with image, and image through a Macintosh, was a MacBook Pro camera, awful. And, and it was like, oh my God, where to start fixing this? Well, fortunately enough, I've got, a recording studio here. So audio, which ends up to be more important than video to any online experience, ends up to be rather easy to solve. And then Zoom gave us stereo, and Zoom gave us real music, and stuff started to even out a little bit. So in March or April or May, we began to notice that we weren't going to get out of this very soon. And come summer, we were not going to be out of this. And all the summer programs were going away. So Isabel, my beloved, my partner, we decided to delve down into kind of recreating our business. We have a business that's been running in the background ever since we created music for Holland America Cruise Lines many years ago, when they began doing Lincoln Center Stage, which was this piano quintet on all of their cruise ships. So we curated the music and trained the first bands, went out on the ships to install them. So we were kind of at the core of that creative process. We were the creatives there. So we hadn't really exercised our business chops for a while. So we decided, what is important, right? And the thing that's important to me, most important to me, more important than violin playing or music making, is education. And we're not talking about educating others. It's a weird thing for me. This is the cycle of life. Education and storytelling, which occurs in a cycle between people. Yes, we have schools, so on, but schools are not the place where most education takes place. Life is the place where most education takes place. So we thought, let's create a summer program, at least to start. So we began to figure out what this was, and we came up with the name Amplify This, kind of a reference both to my predilection for electronic music and loud music and powerful music, and a gesture to Billy Crystal, perhaps. I don't know.
Okay.
So Amplify This, and the Creative Expansion Lab was born. So we took on our first cohort, and we actually extended it past the 8 weeks it was supposed to go, into 4 more weeks. Had a lovely, lovely time together in this program. And one of the first things that happened out of that is we realized that we could also support others in leveling up their virtual presence. So we began Level Up Your Virtual Presence, which is, we haven't offered those courses in a while, but we supported a lot of folks in learning about mics, learning about cameras, learning about how to really be great online, how to look in a camera, and what's
huge.
really important, and what contributes to what my one of my tech gurus, Alex Lindsay, calls cognitive load. We'll talk more about that later, and what can ease what people refer to as the Zoom fatigue. So we kind of got into that business of like, how can we support others, and we're continuing to flesh that out and turn it on its head. Meanwhile, in December, I hadn't ever really streamed before. I just hadn't. And I started streaming, halfway through the year. In December, decided I'd go online like every day and play for people, every day. And those were the December dailies. And here I was, I'd kind of learned what I had learned. And I did with it what I could. And I made these things. You can see them all on the YouTube channel from long ago. I haven't looked at them in a while. I don't know how they look or sound compared to what things are now.
Yeah, if I can interject,
please,
I think,
yeah, I'll go on all day. Sorry.
No, it's your show. If I can interject, and we have a ton of links up, folks. And let me also say what we're going to start doing, not only the links in the chat, but if you're watching this later on, which I hope you are, and I know you are, many of you, go into the description right here on YouTube. Just go to our description. You'll see Todd's bio. You'll see a bunch of links. And every link that we're mentioning, we're going to make sure is in there. But on his YouTube, I just wanted to say, I really tried to see every one of these streams. He did a stream every single day in that month. And I caught,
Awesome.
I caught 22 or so,
You were
22 or
always
3.
there, actually.
I loved it. And it sounded great. It looked great. And maybe we'll see a bit of his studio here, but it's a state-of-the-art studio. And I love that you pointed out that there was a lot of just lousy cell phone streaming and videos, and you were very inspiring to me and many others to say, okay, roll up your sleeves. It's got to sound good, and I'm still struggling with that. But sorry, go back to telling us about December and that streaming.
So December happened, and then January happened, and then all of a sudden things start to open up. Well, a little bit by little bit. We fared pretty well here in Massachusetts. I think people behaved themselves, and we all missed our friends and let ourselves miss our friends instead of forcing the issue. And so we continued on to do these courses. And then Isabel had this wonderful idea of something called Yes Engines, where we would gather folks together, artists together, just to talk to each other and deal with some of the things that are blocks and stops to us as artists, talk about the possible futures going forward, and how all of us can kind of rethink our careers as sole proprietors and kind of take some of the reins back from institutional gatekeepers and say, I don't have to be performing at Carnegie Hall. Well, nobody does. But it's like, I don't have to be in this situation. I don't have to be involved in that clique or this clique or know these people or those people. And I can actually use the internet and perform and begin to generate some stuff. And we've seen a lot of people do that. Lots of Patreons. Yourself, you did a Patreon, and we began to realize that one of the things that we don't do that easily as sole proprietors in the artistic community, it's hard to do it alone. We don't form tribes. It's kind of hard because everybody's busy and everybody's trying to do their own thing, and nobody wants to bother each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we're attempting to take on that mantle and say, hey, come over here and hang and meet this person and meet that person. And because of this past year, we are beginning to find out that one person's gone out and built a studio. Another person's gone out and made a record. Another person's gone out and started a school. These are people that we had the great pleasure and honor of working with in this past year. So we're working on new programs. But and then fast forward to March and April of this past year, when somebody told me about this thing called office hours.
Office hours, okay.
Yeah, right.
That's
Oops, I just lost my wireless pack. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Where's our stage text to run over?
And this was somebody who was actually part of one of our Level Up Your Virtual Presence courses.
The office hours person.
No. The person who hipped me to office hours.
Oh, hipped you. Got
Right?
you.
So
Gotcha.
it was the partner of somebody who was hanging with us in a level up class or Yes Engine.
Okay.
And they said, you should go check this thing out. And I did. And that kind of changed stuff too. I found out that all this time I'd been doing all this work on my own and discovery on my own, there were a whole bunch of people doing it online every single day in a Zoom call.
Incredible. If I can interject again and say, just to put a line around that, because I think you need to take some more credit there, man. You know, you're talking about all these great programs, and I think I want to take a second and emphasize to people that the first area there, the X Lab and Yes Engine and Amplify, this is all stuff that's from the little cottage industry up in Massachusetts of Todd Reynolds and as he says, his wonderful, amazing partner Isabel. And so this is his site. We've put this link up, but I'd like you folks to go there and check it out. There's a lot of really clear, incredible information about everything he just mentioned. Yes Engine, you know, all kinds of stuff. The Level Up Your Presence with the Solution series, all kinds of really neat stuff. And then he does one-on-one coaching and mentoring. What I love is you got stuff happening on so many levels at once. It's so inspiring. Besides waking up in the morning and being a musician and just making some music as you do and you share with us, you're thinking about what does art mean? What are we doing this for? How can we work together? So I really love that. And I want to just put a pin in that. But let's come back to tell us more about office hours, because this is so fascinating.
Sure. I mean, there are a few people on here. I won't necessarily name them to call them out, but actually, there we go. And Andrew Lipnick, who's also a part of it. This is where I met Andy Lipnick. Oh. He's a part of it, and he's describing it there. Office Hours is an amazing community, and it's how I got to meet Todd and make some music with him. We have a band there called the Remotes, and we do everything from originals to some really respectful covers of some great tunes. So, and we do that all remotely, right?
That's fantastic.
And it is a community of problem solvers. That at the top is Alex Lindsay, and anybody who has ever listened to Mac Break Weekly or This Week in Tech will know Alex Lindsay. Okay. He was at Industrial Light and Magic during the first Star Wars era. He had a company called Pixel Core. He now is part of 090 Media. Chris Comfort there that you just passed was the one who mentioned that I should come on the right there. Chris Comfort. Okay. Said, hey, dude, you should come because you have a lot to learn and a lot to share. And so I went, I watched a long time. This is a really daunting thing, right? And it's kind of hard to weave your way in, right? So you hear about it and you go to YouTube to Alex's channel, you see it. The first thing he comes on screen every day, he says, hey, this is how we handle the chat. This is the Zoom call. You can get a little bit more access through the Zoom call. Then it's a webinar every day. And then it started to steamroll. And eventually I found myself as a panelist because there are some audio guys on there. And what's amazing is it's a community that's very well integrated in terms of the tech industry. So you got heavy network people, heavy audio people, heavy video people, heavy streaming people, and just heavy people who've been in the film and live broadcast industry forever. Some incredible voices, some incredible low voices, and voice actors that are even in there. It's a crew of people, for me, who have been some of the most generous, arm-opening folks that I really didn't imagine. And of course, at the beginning, when I waded into the water's cold. It's not immediately warm. So like any relationship building exercise, it was something that taught me a lot. And so now I spend too much time there. As I was saying to people this morning, I got to start doing a little bit more publishing and a little less learning, because that's what I end up doing every day. Right. And I'm learning about stuff I didn't know that I wanted to know so much. So anyway, for anybody out there who's interested in this, just go to Alex Lindsay's YouTube page and come at it's 10 to 12 Eastern, or what is that? That's 7 to 9 Pacific and anything in between.
Sure.
And come and just kind of survey and maybe go through some old episodes. You'll see something that you're interested in, and go listen to it, and you'll find this bam, 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 bam question and answer session that helps
No,
people with tech.
I definitely have to stop in. And is it a subscription thing? Do you have to sign up? Is it
There's no cost in any direction.
No cost? Wow. It's
This
literally
right.
networking, learning, sharing. Wow. This
Right.
is
Right.
I gotta.
And the people, including Alex, the people behind the scenes who are kind of making this work from a production angle, because there's somebody there every day who reads the questions, somebody there who manages and cuts the show. These are all volunteers who just wanna get better, be better, support others in being their best. That's just what everybody's interested in. It's a weird utopia. You kind of don't believe it at first.
I love it.
When you start to get to know people, you're like, oh my goodness, this is really a bunch of warm-hearted folks.
I love it.
That's what it is.
No, you've brought it up. You've told me about it, and I've just been so crazy. But I just got to start getting up earlier and drinking more espresso and doing things like, no, really, like office hours. Folks, put your questions in there. We're going to get into some stuff on Todd's music now too, and people know that you can just drop any song in and I'll sing it. Them heavy people hit me in a soft spot. A little Kate Bush there, so you can I'll always go off topic and sing if I know the song. And Meg Kelly's here. Thanks for being here, Meg. Thanks for all of you folks. But if you got some questions, this is a good time to throw them in. Let's segue to a little bit of Todd Reynolds, the musician. I mean, it's all Todd Reynolds, the big ball of wax. But music and violin, and you are a cross-platform musician for many years. And I wanted to ask a couple things. Let's start with, talk to me a little bit about that space between the orchestral world and the experimental electronic world. Because when I met you, Todd and I met 20-some years ago on the Loopers group, people that use looping software and hardware. And so ever since I've known him, he's been between those worlds. I've seen him do orchestral music. I've seen him with Steve Reich. I've seen him solo. I've seen him with Todd Rundgren, Joe Jackson. Seen him with ETHEL. So talk to us about your that moment, somebody trained as a classical musician, orchestral musician. When was the moment you said, oh, wow, there's all this other stuff. I'm jumping into that pool. Tell us about that.
Well, there is that moment that for sure exists. There's a moment before that though, which is even weirder. So I grew up playing the same, studies and concerti and sonati and everything that every other kid played. And when I hit about 19 years old, I was still in LA. I was born in LA, grew up in LA. I had the opportunity to study with one of the foremost violinists, maybe the foremost violinist of the 20th century. And after that, somebody hired me to do something called new music. And I was like, what's that? Because in the classical world, they don't, or they do now, but they didn't at the time, really, folks were kind of blinders on about music that was written today. So I played my first gig for a composer named Jake Heggie, who writes music, writes song cycles and all sorts of classical stuff. I haven't seen him since that time, but I played his music, and playing music that was freshly written changed my world. So when I finally went to school to conservatory, I remembered that, and that was kind of what I really was more interested in. I was interested in more cutting-edge classical music. So don't feed me anything before Bartók. Give me Bartók, Stravinsky, and then I started to learn that there were plenty of composers who'd just come to Eastman to write music and learn how to write music more effectively. So right. I attached to them. So my brain started, that was my kind of conversion process. I kind of gave my life to new music in my first year at Eastman. I was 21. So that's number one. Then I did take the orchestra job on a whim. I got it, spent 3 years there. It was a wonderful time. And I kept on realizing, what's my career path? And is there, I started thinking there was something more for me. One day I realized there was, And literally within 20 minutes, I had quit my job from thinking that thought. It's one of those things. Have you ever had that where it's like the decision's made for you? Maybe that's, part of your vegan journey, where it's like, you're there, and then all of a sudden, one moment you're like, wow, it makes sense this way.
There was that moment at age 19, right?
Right.
I'd heard it a million times, but
right.
yeah, there's that moment.
And then boom. So that happened, and I said, well, when am I going to quit? End of the season. What? It's like, why not now? So I turned left instead of right on my way home, went up the stairs to the office and quit. So, and then I went back to school. It was at school when I realized that Steve Reich, who was now my employer, who had become my employer, had studied gamelan music and Ghanaian music, Ewe drumming. And these were his two primary influences. And I'm like, well, if he's studying that, why am I spending my time still on this very harsh atonal music only that I was playing? Because I love the groove. Listen to me. I love the groove. And, I still really had not done a deep dive on James Brown. I just hadn't.
Wow.
So it was right then. It was at SUNY at Stony Brook, where they were giving me a master's. I didn't have a bachelor's. They wouldn't give it to me at Eastman after I quit my job. And so so I studied, I had a master's, and went on tour, and that's when I began trying to play with every rock and roll band, do everything I possibly could to learn and expand my horizons. And that included electronic music.
That's wow. No, that's great. So it was a eureka moment. It was bang. You just kind of saw this other direction.
It was basically what, I have something I want to share, and even though I don't know what that is, I want it to be bigger than playing my 56th version of the Tchaikovsky Sixth Symphony in an orchestra, no matter how big or famous or well-known or important that orchestra is. I just needed to do something more individual. That's all.
Yeah. No, that's what I love too is as musicians, we talk about this all the time. We're in the 21st century. The money relationships have evolved as they always have. You and I talk about this a lot. The mind-blowing amount of just musicians that there are versus 1982, and you've talked about that with how many violin players there are, right, in New York, versus when you started. So I love that you're very realistic about those things, and that you keep teaching in the field and all these other projects. Tell us a little bit. What was the first? So Steve Reich, what was the first record you did with him? You did the Cave and
right. That was my first tour. Was the Cave, and
the first one was the Cave.
Yeah, then that would have been the first record.
Okay, I thought so. Okay. Yeah. I always check though, because there's always these.
Yeah, there's random things, right?
In Japan, we released this one thing, but folks, if anyone here, which I couldn't believe you're on a Make Weird Music chat and you don't know the great Steve Reich, but if you don't, if not familiar with this piece, The Cave, one of my favorite pieces, and we could spend 2 hours just on that, but please go check it out. It's a multimedia work with Steve's wife. Pronounce her last name for me.
Beryl Kuro is
Kuro. Okay, so it's a soft.
I have always pronounced it.
Okay, it's a soft T, but Steve's wife is an incredible video artist, and so this piece you can watch on YouTube. This is, I think, way ahead of its time in terms of how much this piece pushed the envelope on using computers and multiple screens and all that.
It was computers running Laserdisc players. The great design sound artist, video artist Ben Rubin designed this. He's done a lot of important work, and he was kind of at the head of making the Cave work. And then there was Three Tales, which was his next opera, with Berg and these other things. Steve is the master of the 3-part form. Period.
Right.
Whether it's an opera or every piece, it's always going to be in a 3-part form, and it's always he's just a master at it. That's it.
Really great, and much like this could be a weird comparison for some people, but much like the artist Robert Williams, who I love, there's always 2 or 3 or 4 layers with Steve Reich's music. There's the music, the melodies, the beauty of it, the African rhythms are throughout his work, and then there's the technology of using spliced up tapes and things, and then there's often a sociological comment, a kind of a political thing. Um, what so you did the Cave, and then you did some touring.
Yeah.
Um, uh, what
This was like 20 years of touring. So we
right?
did this together for a long time. And unlike Phil Glass, there's Philip Glass still takes his band everywhere. I mean, it's like the Philip Glass Ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
The Steve Reich Ensemble was a touring ensemble, but there weren't that many people playing Steve's music at the time. And in fact, at the beginning, he didn't really release it all that much, So it's like you kind of had to have him involved to really put the what's the word? The not stamp of approval, but
Imprimatur.
yeah,
Does
imprimatur,
that
right?
work?
So, however, people started to play Steve's music a lot more, and it just kind of it started to really move and move and move, and there were more and more ensembles, and the ensembles were excellent. The thing about Steve as a composer, which is kind of, I don't even know how to describe this, but it's amazing to me. If you take a Steve Reich score and you play every single note at exactly the length that it is written, and you play it without vibrato, his demand. You play it without vibrato, and you play it just like the values of the notes and the pitches correctly. The music plays itself. And even though many groups will play it, it's not that much different. The piece always sounds very, very much like the piece. It is doable, it is executable, and it sounds marvelous. It's like etched glass for me. The no pun intended. It's like etched glass for me. Every single piece of Steve's. It's awesome.
No, truly beautiful human being. And I just stumbled across a little clip he did promoting different trains, where he explains how that. Folks, check that one out too, because that's a pretty poignant work about the 1940s and how Steve was traveling on trains to see his dad. His parents were divorced.
Right. And we played that piece so many times.
Yeah, and meanwhile in Germany, relatives of his were on different trains. Wow, but he took that incredibly heavy situation and turned it into this really multi-layered. So please check that out. I want to jump. I do a lot of jump cuts here, as you all know. Let's jump to some Todd Reynolds music, and also talk about this most recent period, because you've been doing these new streams, and I want to share that with people. We've got, for instance, just a couple weeks ago, you've been doing. So just dropping the needle randomly, folks. And I'm just kind of jumping in randomly, folks, because I really want to make sure you have a little flavor here of what this man has done in the past year. I mean, as he was saying, he had a beautiful studio before, but he's turned it into this multimedia broadcast station, and he's been doing these streams. So we have a couple shots there. I'll play a few more seconds, and I'll ask you about this. So you have
to
this
the bar. I think I have a date with the American Legion in North Adams. Mayani knows what I'm talking about.
So what we have is this really cool, very formal in a way. It's this real serious performance in terms of quality and sound. And then it's Todd just kind of talking to us, sharing, answering live questions. So you've done a bunch of these in the last month or so, which I've noticed have been a whole other level. Talk to me about that and how you have this new website that's coming up that we can't really say a ton about, but I know you talk to us about that, like just the kind of the right now direction you want to take some of your tutelage and your streaming and your.
Well, you know, I'll tell you, just give you a little snapshot of something that Isabel and I have been thinking about a lot. And that is that I've got a lot of music on hard drives, a lot of unpublished stuff. And so it's time. It's time. This is the 10th year anniversary of my record called Outerborough, which came out in 2011. And it's kind of high time. I'm someone who tends to live, perhaps to a fault, too much in the present. In that all of those YouTube streams you were playing, those are, every single note is made up. There's nothing written. So my streaming is all, you know, you could call it improvisation. I like to call it real-time composition because it's managing many layers at one time, and it's how I like to work. It's where I find the most joy is by making things work with and against each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my creative happy place is. What that also results in is that I don't make a lot of tunes. I don't write songs. I'm not all that thrilled by accomplishing like an 8-minute tune and say, I did it. I'm done. Here it is. Put it on a record, sell it. So that's one of the things that challenges me. That's one of the things I'm challenged by. So I'm going to take on that challenge and take some people with me. So one of our next Amplify This programs is going to be making a record. So there are some people out there, I don't know who they are, who get stopped by the idea of putting stuff out and publishing. And I know how that feels. And I'm going to dig down for myself and with others and form a community. And we're going to put our records out after, I don't know what it'll be, either 4 months, 6 months, or a year. We'll figure that out. And I'm going to dig down and we're going to put our stuff out on BandCamp and learn every step along the way to do that. Because we can, and because we must, and because all of those things we own. We can own it now. Nobody else needs to take a piece of our work. So there are all those things, and there are all these folks that I know and love who can talk to some of these issues, whether it's the marketing, the design, the creation. There's me, who can talk all about Ableton Live and what it's like to create music not only in real time, but then to kind of codify those things that you make and pull them into focus. So that's where it is. I'm beginning to realize that in my life, at my ripe old age, I shouldn't say that. I have a friend who would get really old, but at my age, where I am in life, I really do need to sit down and start publishing beyond the stream. And the stream is, even though I only started it last year, it has become a real happy place where I can go on and make sounds that sound good and exchange connection with other folks and talk with them and say hi and kind of know who's there. So that will continue. That's going to be part of my life. And I love supporting other people who want to do the same. And we're going to make a record. It's time.
I love it. And I'm going to need to check in on that because that's a big problem I have. I've got hard drives. I've got mini discs. I've got DATs. I've got, and it's always been a problem, like kicking it over the finish line. I've got, a couple of CDs I've released, but I think I'm going to check in on those classes. Right. Folks, we had a link up there, of course, of Outerborough and also These Birds Walk, which is a film score. But Outerborough, wonderful album. I have it on CD somewhere, but you can pick it up on BandCamp. There's Todd's BandCamp, which we've linked. Otherwise, we linked his YouTube actually too, and that's the one to really go to a lot because he's always doing things on YouTube, and he if you subscribe, he announces other things that are happening. So that's cool. More releases, and I love what you said. We're big supporters here of BandCamp here at Make Weird Music because, as you said, it's the direct connection now to artists. I mean, everything's been removed. You know, well, okay, PayPal gets a tiny piece of it, but not even the first Friday of each month. That's amazing on the first Friday of each month, where it's 100%.
A lot of the steps that they've taken are amazing.
Amazing.
There's
Yeah.
there's something that if you go to the Bandcamp site, not my site or anybody else's, but if you do a little deep dive on Bandcamp, we saw once a photograph of the staff. I don't know how many people are in that photograph. There might be 70.
Mm.
And when I looked at that staff and the kind of diversity,
Good.
it was like it was a tapestry, and
That's huge.
and it's beautiful to see another attempt at utopia, another attempt at kind of building the kind of world that you want to live in, where people own their work and they can kind of manage their own affairs. They've started doing live events as well.
I saw that. Yes, they've expanded into all kinds of cool stuff with types of merch and kind of a Patreon thing where you can have subscribers and really fantastic. And that's great. Let's go to a couple questions. And there's one question here that is on my list of questions. We just had one that went away. Okay, maybe he's rephrasing his question. But I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about gear, and we had a beautiful shot there of your rig, of your gear, and you can switch around if you like. Talk to us a little bit about. I know there's a special story about the violin, your number one instrument. Tell me a little about the violin, but also tell us real briefly about what you got going on there, electronic wise, like what
Sure,
stuff and
sure,
Ableton.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's, it's kind of funny. As much as I had intended to have stuff set up for you a little bit better, you know, this is just a portion of the studio, and of course also there's the old. Let's see if I can grab this one here as well. That's not it. I'm looking for this one. There's the old. This is my love. I mean, along with my love in real life,
Human, yeah.
This
It's
is
your AI love.
This is my interface.
I'm with you.
This is what I use and have used since version 2.0. And very soon I became an Ableton artist after that. There's a man who actually created the East Coast and U.S. division of Ableton, named Dave Hill Jr., who also went on to manage or run Isotope, and then went off into corporate marketing and is now a coach, a career coach and a personal coach, somebody who I've worked with, marvelous human being. He took me in. He took me to Monster Sushi on 23rd Street in Manhattan.
Wow.
and would say, "Hey, what are you up to?" So, you know, I've kind of been working in the very back. I'm not an Ableton certified trainer. I'm an Ableton artist, which is really a different thing.
Okay.
But Ableton is and will continue to be my drug of choice in every way.
Yeah.
Every way, yeah. So that's what I use for all my work, and especially for my creative work. It is the creative tool, I think, which is best to have. And it also has Cycling 74's Max MSP now built into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is at the core level part of Ableton. So those two products together make it something that you can just kind of can't beat. So that's the studio. You showed the YouTube of the studio. I don't actually have a great. Let me see if I can just get a little shot
Sure.
of my messy desk here, because everybody wants to see a messy desk, right?
Sign of a creative mind.
Right. That's how we say it.
That's my excuse.
Yep. I'm not sure if that's the best or if this is the best. Let me see what one. Oh my goodness, what a mess! I'm going to show you a mess. Are you ready?
We're ready.
Here we go. There we go. That's my mess.
Nice.
Oh wow, that's more of a mess than you need. There we go.
A lot of wires and
Yeah.
studio lighting and yeah.
Yeah, and an Ableton controller called the Ableton Push 2, which is made by Ableton, so completely integrated with Ableton. Great
Hmm.
music. So that's my studio, and over here are on the left are just a rack full of audio interfaces and older gear as well that I still use in my tunes sometimes. So that's some of the gear, and yeah, and I'm sure there are more questions. So I'll give that back to you.
Yeah, and overall, when you're doing Amplify this and Yes Engine, and various workshops, it hits everything, right? It hits musical ideas, it hits Ableton, Max. Someone might have a question. I've been at a few of these. Someone might have a question. I don't really understand. How do I hook my interface up? So that's
Right.
whatever it is, right, folks? It's
Well, it's that, and it's also mindset shifting.
yeah,
Because you get somebody on screen that says, I just cannot figure out how to push through this issue, or somebody who comes on screen continually talking about comparing themselves to other people, and you realize that there's an opportunity to actually make a shift which will last somebody a lifetime.
mm,
So this is part of our work too. That's kind of more the individual coaching, really encouraging people to say, no, 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 no. It's they put some blinders on for a minute, and let's really think about what's unique to you. I always make this joke. They won't let me teach violin in conservatory because I'll just ruin all the students.
right, right,
They'll be coming in saying, "Ken, will you help me with my orchestral excerpts?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Let's find something that's uniquely you,
yeah,
so that at least if you're going to go through this lifetime serving the community as an artist, you do so on your terms and
it's
not on the terms of everybody around you that has already set it up.
yeah.
You be the change, and you create the world you want to live in."
It's that's a great. That should be a little t-shirt. A couple of those phrases are t-shirt level. No, really, because
Have no
it's
merch yet. We got to make merch, Isabel.
yeah. There you go.
Isabel
Right.
has arrived. She's in the chat
Oh,
now.
awesome. Hey, Isabel. So, talk to me a little bit about. I mean, we've talked about so many. We've quickly listed some of the artists you've worked with, but one of the many lasting marks you've made on the new music world, in my opinion, is besides your solo work, your work with the ensemble you co-founded, ETHEL, the string quartet. Talk to us about ETHEL a little bit, and
Well, Ethel, just in short, I think it was 1998, 1999. I was walking down the street with my dear friend at the time, and he said to me, he says, you need to make your own band. You're playing with everybody else's band. You're being a side person. That's Dorothy,
mhm.
Dorothy, and and you need to make your own band, if you're going to do this. So he said, who would you play with if you were to make a band? I'm like, well, I'd love to do a string quartet, and tell you the people I would hire first of all would be, this person, this person, this person. And he says, so do that thing. So I made some calls, and I actually had somebody serendipitously who said, hey, I need a string quartet. Do you have a string quartet? I'm like, well, maybe. So we did our first gigs, and then the first year, I self-produced a bunch of concerts, which were kind of more in the line of almost performance art a little bit. I was experimenting with some things, and so I booked a bunch of shows, and I was kind of trying to run it as a David Harrington model. That's the Chrono String Quartet.
Chronos, sure.
David is really responsible for the life and the trajectory of that band, and that's what I really wanted to do with Ethel. And after about a year, it was like that wasn't going to happen. I had three strong-willed people and myself, and we were all strong-willed. And it was like, no, we want this to be equal. So we regrouped. Actually, came up with the name Ethel as a symbol of regenerating and starting over. And so then Ethel was born, and then we did 7 years, and 7 years together, and then our paths really diverged. It was actually 3-1 the way that the paths diverged. So I ended up not in that band anymore, and kind of decided at that time, it's like I don't want to build something else. because that's kind of silly to come off of that and just go into something else. So that's kind of when I started to think about being a solo artist and trying to collaborate with different people and start to work with dance and film and these things. So yeah. That's the thing. Ethel goes on. It's strong. You just showed the website. Their photography is always good. Band sounds good. They are integrated with all of the community. They do young people's projects as well. And for a while, they were working inside the Native American community back in the day, even when I was engaged with them. So anyway, the band is doing fine. They're in residence at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they're doing fine.
That's fantastic. I was fortunate to see you all. I think I saw you. You did a.
Oh my
show.
Goodness! There's this.
Yeah, but here's a nice surprise for people. There's young Todd with Todd Rundgren and Joe Jackson.
I don't know how you were diverted. You were perverted too. I don't know. See the love well that's sleeping while my guitar gently beats.
Wow, so cool.
Send me that link.
I will. Oh, you haven't seen that?
No, I haven't seen it in so long. I mean, the one that I end up, is that the Conan OBrien one or no?
No, it's somewhere on a tour.
On the tour, yeah. We spent 3 months.
State Theater, New Jersey. Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. The record was just released of that tour.
Yeah, right.
Which was interesting. And
just this week.
Yeah, and so that's fun.
Just this month, yeah.
Yeah, and Andy Lipnick has a couple of questions I want to make sure we get to.
Yeah, no, let's do that. And so that's I'll put the link there.
Todd and Joe touring on a bus.
That's right. Todd and Joe and Ethel.
Yeah,
and,
amazing.
And wonderful tour. I saw it in we saw it in Central Park, so that was wonderful.
Yes, and that was the first.
Oh, was that the first one?
So Central Park Summer Stage, this was the first. This was the brainchild of Bill Bregen, who now runs the arts program in the UAE, in Dubai, NYU, and NYU. Sorry, not Dubai, Abu Dhabi. Boy, that was a bad mistake.
Okay.
In NYU Abu Dhabi. So anyway, he is an incredible curator. Used to do the swing thing at Lincoln Center. Bill Bregen made that happen along with Joe Jackson's manager, and oh my goodness, it was a hoot and a holler.
That's awesome. Well, that part of the world is near and dear to me because my sister used to work there. Did you know? Sidebar. Did you know in Dubai they can't show the Flintstones? Did you know that?
Right. Because people in Dubai don't watch it, but
Abu Dhabi do.
Oh, those in Abu Dhabi do. Yeah.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi do.
Yeah.
They don't show it in Dubai.
Yeah.
There's got to be
together.
There's got to be a little silliness.
One question.
Let's go to Andrew Lipnick's question. So Andrew says, "What do you do when you want or need to change things up?" Yeah, like when you find yourself playing the same thing you did the last 20 times you played an instrument. Give us that's a great one. How do you shake it up, Todd? How do you inspire new direction?
Great to see you, Zan, by the way. Great cellist, Zan Barry.
Hi, Zan. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, the way I'll tell you, what I showed you when I showed you Ableton Live. I mean, this is one thing that I do to change it up. This is not my normal set. My normal set has about 64 tracks in it. There are many, many different things I've done over the past, and I just keep them all in this one set, and I have this kind of one way of working. So during the set, you'll see this set is entitled December Daily, Day 9, right? So when I started streaming in December, I had never used Ableton's looper before. I used this other looper that's an 8-track looper called Mobius, and I had never used this looper, and I said, okay, Todd, simplify down. I made these 4 tracks empty so that I could record into clips, just these 4 clips, very simple effect setup, and this looper, and everything would be synced. And then later on, I added the addition of the modular, the external modular, and so I could bring that in and process it. And then, so it was kind of a whole new thing. I'm like, I just an empty Ableton set. Let's try something new. So, I mean, it's kind of weird that it is always embedded in the question. In order to try something new, you kind of have to stop. You kind of have to stop that. They take the horn out of your mouth and then put a boundary around it, right? So one of the hardest things that I have had to learn as a musician, is that boundaries are good. I love to start out with an open, clean slate and just paint all over the canvas, which is great. But having every color known to personhood in that palette is kind of overwhelming. So you got to make some choices. So one of the ways that I first started making choices was saying, I'm going to use this one Ableton set for 10 years instead of making 1,000 different Ableton sets. That was my way of confining. But then when you get used to that, then you also have to smash that icon. So it's sort of sounds simplistic, Andrew, but what I do when I find myself getting sick of the sound of my own voice is try to go radically against it. And I don't think I succeed in it enough.
Yeah, that's honest and vulnerable. And
my God, yes. Well, there's nothing but honesty. And that is not worth saying. But I tend toward the motor delay stuff and the heavy reverb stuff. You'll hear that from me a lot. And it's very hard for me to go the other direction. My friends in the band called The Books, this is a phenomenal band that's now defunct, but I opened for them and I toured with them for a time. And their music is all very not that. It's very in your face, and it's a sound world created inside dryness. And it's like music. It's all musique concrète. It's all samples, and it is amazing. So I always think of them and say, well, I should try something different and go towards something that's not so washy and not so full of delays. And I still am failing. So we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll examine sound from some other facet. Sound is a diamond, and you just got to keep on looking at it through every different facet. I have a quick story.
Please.
I have a quick story to that. And that is, if you go to listen to These Birds Walk, okay, two directors who said to me, we want your music in our film. I'm like, awesome. We negotiated. We came together. We came into a room together. I said, because they were kind of concerned that they wouldn't be able to have their fingers on the process. I'm like, I'm a collaborator. I love it. Come to my studio. They both came to me in New York. Bassam and, oh my goodness, Bassam and, oh God, find it for me, somebody. But it's a Bassam Tariq. The reason that the Bassam's name is in my head is because I just saw an article which said that Bassam is being
Omar Malik.
Yeah, Omar Malik. Omar Malik, man, he's okay, I can't talk about everybody too much, but Bassam is being pegged for the next Marvel movie, I think.
Oh, wow.
So as the director. So anyway, these birds walk. They come into my studio, and I knew what concert they had attended, or the concert that Bassam had attended. So I went off starting to do my thing, and they're like, "Yeah, no, not that. No. no, that's not right for this. And all of a sudden, I made some mistake or something, and Bassam was like, oh yeah, that. And I'm like, that's it. It was a sound kind of like this. And Bassam was like, yeah, that. Well, that's not even that's.
That's
So in any case, if you listen to These Birds Walk, you're going to hear a score made out of sounds that I would never choose to make in writing my own music. And that taught me one of the most valuable lessons ever, is that every movie needs its own language.
yeah.
And that when somebody says, I don't like this and I like that, your effort to reproduce that for them can end up with a whole entire new language with which you can create. It's like somebody handed you $1 million brush. So that's another story that relates to that, Andy, and I hope you like that.
That's fantastic. I that looks like a really interesting movie too. Yeah, I bookmarked it. A couple. Wow, so much stuff here. And you have another 10 minutes?
I've got for you unlimited time.
Well, let's go till midnight. No, we you know, I struggle with these because I have, when I have a wonderful guest like you, it could be 3 hours, but we're trying to keep it you know, sane here at Make Weird Music. So but we'll go for another 10 minutes or so. But a couple things I wanted to remind that I've been keeping in my in the buffer somewhere up here. First off, shout out to the wonderful Make Noise music. I always got to pause because I got Make Weird Music, Make Noise music. But Make Noise, that's 2 miles from my house, is the incredible modular synthesis company. And I had Tony Rolando on a couple months ago. And you use a lot of their stuff, and you actually, I understand you use one of their systems when you're teaching. Tell us a little bit about that and a little about where you teach in New York and that you teach, you know, modular synthesis.
Sure, yeah. Well, so I teach at the Manhattan School of Music. And in the Manhattan School of Music, it's so funny because it's like in every place I go, I always find the weird tribe, you know, and that's my life and I love it. So at Manhattan School, there's a program and it's called the Contemporary Performance Program. There are usually somewhere between 10 and 14 people in it seeking a first or a second master's. They are there exclusively to study contemporary classical music across the European spectrum, across the American spectrum. Just, you know, it's a program which also focuses on chamber music, and what ends up happening is people come out of this particular program forming their own groups, some of them sometimes very technologically based, sometimes straight old chamber music based in classical music, and a lot of soloists that are phenomenal. Vicky Chow, the pianist, came out of there. She's the pianist for the Bang on Ken All-Stars and a soloist bar none. So, you know, folks like that. And my students, like I say, I don't teach violin there. The really great Curtis McComber from the 60s, he was like one of the major new music violin dudes in the 60s and 70s, 80s. Curtis teaches their violin. I get the privilege of teaching electronic music in 4 classes called Performing with Electronics. So I teach one course of Ableton, one course of Max MSP. Then the third year is, the third course and fourth course, which are the second year, if people choose to go on, is intended to be real performance-based, advanced stuff. So in the first year, I don't like this language. I make them break down and build up a sound system.
Okay.
You know, every week. And then in the second year, before we went indoors, my cohort would take the entire sound system out from the 4th floor from our room that we have there, take it downstairs across from the cafeteria, set it up and play a concert, and take it back all within the class time of 2 hours. Wow. That was exciting. When we went indoors, all of a sudden it became, you know, let's do 3 concerts and stream them on Twitch.
Wow.
And I still have those concerts. They were brilliant. The people I worked with were brilliant, and of course much more facile than even I am at making some of these videos. Had one guy from Israel who totally transformed his bedroom. The one I would talk to him in when we were working together, and all of a sudden he presents me with a movie, and he's like, "It's impossible that you would have made this 8-minute movie in this bedroom." And sure enough, he had lit the thing, sounded amazing, it was perfect. Another guy did modular in his basement, and another woman used stock footage and just made it beautiful. A cellist got into visual, like jitter, which is the video component of Max MSP, made incredible graphics, reactive graphics. My goodness, I had the best time watching these folks do all this stuff that I would never, ever be able to rise to. So those are my students last year. So this year, we're going into a totally new thing. I had bought this Make Noise shared system, which I believe that I showed you before.
Mm-hmm.
And there it is. I had bought it. Where is it? No, that's not the right one. Sorry about that. I'll give you a better view of it so we all know what we're talking about. And Tony is totally the inspiration for me buying the shared system. By the way, here we go.
Tony Rolando, folks, who's the
Yeah.
the CEO and the
Shared system.
the mad scientist behind
Oh my God.
Make Noise that he runs with his other half, Kelly Kelbell, who's equally brilliant and flies the plane with him. But look at that system, beautiful. It looks like you're inside, an alien spacecraft. Even though I use modular, I look at other systems and I go,
Right.
what's
Right.
going on?
There was this synth conference. This was before I got into modular at all. In fact, I was so new to it. All that I really knew was this, which you saw in the video that you showed. There's Brian Crabtree's mono,
All right.
and I knew Brian. We had met, and I went to this synth conference in Bushwick to see Brian. And I'm like, what else should I see here? And he said, you should go visit Tony Rolando. So I went over to Tony's table, and the sound that Tony was getting out of a QSC, my speaker of choice, was mind-blowing. Just mono going into this thing out of his system. And the way that Tony explained to me what was going on in the synthesis, and the way that he spoke a tiny bit about history, sold me on Make Noise. So I was following them from that point on. And of course, the great synth store in Brooklyn called Control. Also, they sell his gear and they demonstrate it so beautifully. Great artists in that store. So anyway, that's why I decided to buy a shared system. And because we are an educational institution, we were able to get into their good graces as well. So I bought this for the students, and they had no time to use it because we all went indoors. So my folks really didn't get to play with it. The students a year and a half ago. So this next year they will. So I'm now readying my classes for each one of these modules in the shared system, and will be teaching it to my 3rd level class as part of their kind of hands-on stuff. And the thing that I love about it, and I wish I did have it a little bit set up for you now. I don't have any good sounds up because I had to take it all apart for a concert, and I haven't set it really back up yet. But you can hear it in all those recent YouTube streams.
Right.
Modular synth and violin, melodic stuff works really lovely and beautifully together. And I really love playing inside that environment and sound and kind of wedding the two together. I think they sit well together.
Totally agreed, my friend. And I love that too with guitar and musique concrète and whatnot. As we wrap up, let me make sure we catch a couple questions here. Let's see. Yeah, Bassam Tariq, that is correct. And let's see. I skipped past a question or two.
Derek
Okay,
Scholten
so sorry.
Derek Scholten has one.
Derek Scholten. Yeah, he's. Let's start with his question. He's saying, do you do any work with the new Ableton Virtual MPE?
Yes, I have experimented with that. especially with like Wavetable and some of the other ones too. I spent a while investigating it, and I bought a Sensel Morph. I've known Peter, who's been at the helm selling that. Peter Nybauer, another great programmer and musician and kind of creator of instrumental control. So the Sensel Morph is in my hands, and I do use that. And I confess, Derek, that I have played with it and have not done enough work with it to say that I own it on any level whatsoever.
Sure.
So that's still in my future.
Okay. So your hardware interface for the MPE right now is the Sensel.
Here's the Morph, yeah.
Messing with that. Okay. That's a great system. Let's see. I think there was another question there. Okay, yeah. That's a great question from Steve Ball. He's saying, what's the best way to stay plugged in and aware of Todd's workshops and especially level up your virtual presence? So what's the best spot?
The absolute best way. I've kind of stepped back a little bit from Facebook and Instagram recently for some reason. It just feels like I've never made a ceremony to do that, but I kind of have. So the best way to stay in touch with me is through my website, and there is a mailing list sign up at the bottom of every page on the website, and the first time you land there, it'll be very obvious. And if you just subscribe to that email, I promise you we do not spam too often. Last year there was a whole lot of level up your virtual presence, and as soon as Isabel and I get some stuff scheduled out, we'll be sending out another email. So I think that is probably the level best way to do it. I will post it on Facebook, especially on my music page. So my two pages on Facebook are, my personal page is just /Todd Reynolds, and my music page is /Todd Reynolds Music. So yeah, I would say that's the best, Stephen, and thank you so much for asking. That's one of those things.
That's awesome. And yeah, go to the site, folks. And there's so much that this man is doing. I love it, and it's inspired me greatly. And he's very honest about it. He says, "I'm trying to figure out how to squeeze it all into a day."
Right.
So he shares that with us. I want to close with giving my wonderful audience some homework here, because we just don't have the time. But one of the things, some quick homework of things to go watch, and then Todd's reflections on this, and then we'll wrap. There's so many amazing pioneering folks that Todd has worked with, and that's sometimes an overused word, legend, pioneering, but we're not kidding here. When you're talking about, Meredith Monk and Laurie Anderson and Morton Subotnick and Todd and Joe, I mean, in their own way, those guys carved out in the pop, rock, diverse music world. But so the homework is for you folks to watch this concert that I'm going to put up right now. This is with Morton Subotnick. And let's see. I'm just going to put the link up there.
Yeah.
I've got the audio off, but there we go. So that's that's kind of as outside as it can get sometimes.
Well, you should explain that actually really quickly. I mean,
please, because
first of all, that is the great new music pianist Kathleen Supove, who has commissioned over 1 billion works from composers. I do not exaggerate. She's a commissioning fiend. Okay, I exaggerate. But Mort wrote these pieces back in the day for Ghost Box. So that kind of tremolo thing, that is not bad audio you're hearing. That is actually intentional. And if you were to hear it in stereo and in that incredibly great hall of the Library of Congress, you would hear something very special in that sound. It doesn't quite translate to YouTube so well, recorded, way back then. So
sure.
Yeah.
And real quick, Morton was one of the early folks you worked with, right?
Not really. In fact,
okay. In the middle,
I kind of worked with him much later. This was the first time I ever actually worked with Mort. Period. See, and I haven't done a lot of work with Mort. I love Morton Subotnick and his wife Joan LaBarbera, the great singer and composer and artist. I love them both, and they're so important. I mean, you've probably told this to your folks, but basically, it's like Wendy Carlos and Bob Moog, and Morton Subotnick and Don Buchla. Those are the two paths of synthesis right there. So yeah, it was a pleasure to work with Mort. And also, I should also say, because you've referenced Laurie Anderson a couple of times, I am a disciple of Laurie Anderson, and I have never worked with her. I would love to work with her. Any time that I could work with her, I would jump at the chance and cancel everything else. However, I've opened for Laurie Anderson, and it was a great privilege, and that was also due to the curator Bill Bregen. So thank you to him for that. So that's the real connection there. Is I got to open for her with my own show, and it was a great opportunity.
That's awesome. Well, we should do this again and do a whole focus on the history of that. 65 to 75, because it's so important what came out in New York, the Fluxus people and all these folks that really, it's a renaissance moment, I think, in new music. One more bit of homework for people, and watch this one. This is also one to get one more reflection on an amazing artist that Todd has worked with, Meredith Monk. And you can see Todd. I mean, it's just painful that we can't sit and watch the whole thing, folks, but you'll do that on your own time. Wow, what a place to do a concert in, a water tower or whatever this is.
It's well, I can tell you what it is because it's really worth mentioning. It's Ann Hamilton's tower. Ann Hamilton built this tower, great artist, on the Oliver Ranch. The Oliver Ranch is in Northern California, and it's this one guy who has a sculpture park like Storm King in New York. And so this tower is there, and Meredith and Ann did this collaboration together. That's amazing. And I could talk for hours about Meredith Monk, but yes, you're right. That's another session. And there is one, and if you don't mind, if we have the time,
please
I'll answer one more question, if that's okay.
Please.
I see, of course, Ray says, take the horn out of your mouth. Is this composer improv, Sharon? The Mort Subotnick I think you were referring to, that is absolutely written. That is absolutely a score written in pen and ink, by the way, which is awesome. Then the question, New Jersey Synth Guy, thank you for your question. What is a bit of quick advice for someone starting to get involved in creating and learning music in the later years of one's life? Make friends. Hang out with musicians. Pick your instruments and whatever you are doing. And one of the most wonderful things that can happen is just kind of hitching your wagon to a few folks and creating relationships which are mutually beneficial. So if you've got folks that are in your life who do kind of what you'd like to do, if you begin to get involved, and I don't really. Your moniker is New Jersey Synth Guy, so you sound like a musician, but yet you're asking a question, so I can't really answer too specifically to this question. But I would say if you're trying to become a professional or kind of amp up your game, pay attention to those friends and sit beside them while they do work, and then try to find ways of working inside of their scene, not necessarily making the music, but making the donuts. Making the stuff behind which supports them. These are the things that just leapt out at me when I saw your question. I said that's really interesting, because as we, especially for people doing stuff, starting new things, it's hard. It's kind of walking into the wind, and everybody needs a leg up. And I've found, including with office hours, and I left that link in the chat, so many folks want to give others a leg up because it feels good, because it's the right thing to do, and because it creates the kind of world that I think we all really want to live in. That's
wow. That's a great closing statement. I didn't want to interrupt, nor did I want to influence your answer, but New Jersey Synth Guy is in fact a dear friend and a colleague of mine. That is Dean Matson, the front of house sound person of for Yes, yeah. So he's
fantastic. Hey, Dean, nice to meet you.
so it's a great answer because he's doing that. He's hanging around me and the wonderful keyboard player who he's taking piano lessons from, Kathy Shepard.
Yeah.
He's soaking it up, and so that was a great answer. And I'll say also what's very interesting, watching Dean become a musician and a composer. He's doing this out of nothing. He wasn't doing it 6 months ago. It's really great. But what's really cool is he's a decades of sound experience. He's a sound man at all kinds of clubs in New York, like Wetlands, and many years on the road with all kinds of groups, including Yes. So I'm fascinated because he's coming into music, but he knows all the stuff that musicians usually have to try to figure out,
right?
Gain stages and what's a compressor.
It's all about that stuff, yeah.
So it's been moving very quickly, yeah. So
Right.
people should check out NJ Synth Guy on YouTube also. Wow, Todd, this has been just fantastic, my friend. Is there anything we forgot that we want to make sure people know is coming up? I mean, we gave them all the links. We told them what plans are. I think we hit all the marks, right?
I think we've hit. I think we've hit all the marks.
You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah, I think we have. I don't know what else there is to say here, except that for anybody who's watching this, who's a musician, I will say this: it appears like things have kind of semi-returned to normal, and it's very possible that that's the case, and it also may be possible that we go through a few more rounds of fighting with normalcy and trying to come to a middle ground for all of this. Whether we do, when we do, what has happened over the past 18 months in terms of power, and even before that, power flowing out of the hands of institutions and a little bit more into the hands of individuals. The idea that now, in this moment, you can produce your own live stream. Everybody has their own television channel. Should they decide to contribute their email to the god of YouTube, if you give them your email, you have your own television station. That's true with Twitch. That's true with Facebook. Be careful who owns your material. And as anybody who wants to have a voice, wants to have a public voice, the barrier to entry is very low. As it is so low, it's really worth leveling up, or like really sprucing up and forming a foundation around your virtual presence. And I will tell you, I look at people that are half my age. I look at their Facebook stories. I look at their creativity. I look at the way they are in the public. Sometimes it's kind of hard to watch because it can veer toward the narcissistic. But for those of us across all ages, there's all a way that we can participate in this world of technology and of social media, and there are ways that we can find to do it. So if you're a performer, the excellence that we try to achieve with our instruments and so on, it just goes straight into that line. And if you're a creator of any kind, the world has opened up. So just look for every crevasse of a way that you can open into something different. That's I guess what I'm really saying is that's how I'm looking at it, and it's very exciting and very life-giving. That's kind of what gets me up in the morning.
Wow, that's so beautifully put, Todd. And that's folks, that's the Todd Reynolds I know, where it's a balance of you got to work on your own craft and your musicianship and all the technical stuff and learn. But why are we doing this? For the beauty of art and to share with people and to bring someone else along, to inspire somebody else. That's what I've heard for 80 minutes now, and it's so refreshing because people often leave out one of those sides, and you do it daily, my brother. So thank you, and thank you, folks.
Thank you, Andre, for all the great work you do.
We'll do this again.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks. If someone's not subscribe to Make Weird Music. You got all the links for Todd. If you're watching this later, they're all in the bio area. We'll see you all next time. And just if you're subscribed, you'll see we got I've got a bunch of like 4 cool guests, but we keep moving our dates around for the next upcoming. So Robert Keeley is one of them. We've got the thereminist Pamelia Stickney is going to be coming up. We've got King Britt coming up in a couple of weeks. We've got all kinds of amazing stuff. So those are teasers, but it's a Rubik's Cube on the dates because everyone's busy with the summer and stuff. But stick around. Make sure you subscribe. Thanks so much, and keep listening to weird music. Todd, stick around.
Yeah, this is internet applause. Use it in your Zoom calls.